The original version of this handheld, the GameMT E5, came out almost a little more than a year ago in July of 2024, sporting a very not exciting chip with a VT chip, a single stick, but it had this basic form factor along with that awesome stand. Then, about 8 months later, we got this, the E5 Plus. This one now rocking a much better 3566 rock chip and two sticks, but the first version still had that terrible D-pad. Then we finally got a revision with a much better D-pad, sporting the same screen and the same general outlook of this. But now, today, we're going to unbox and take a look at the newest revision. We just received the E5 Ultra, which bumps up to a Unisoc T620 processor, the same one we saw in the Kinhank K56 that we liked quite a bit. So join me on this journey of discovery as we watch this thing evolve from terrible to not so bad to possibly great, especially for PSP. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode of our content. Anyways, let's hop in and take a look at the E5 Ultra.
I bet Deadfred pays better than your wages at Safeway.
Oh.
Why, yes, I do. And every break on the job comes with a complimentary, refreshing cold Dr. Pepper. So come work for us. Look at our beautiful store with all that we have to offer. Down at Deadfred Mart, you can... No, wait, I don't own a grocery store, but that would be cool. Free Dr. Pepper? Who wouldn't like that? Hey, Deadheads, welcome back to the channel. Or welcome to the channel for the first time, new Deadheads. Today, we're going to take a look at the E3 Ultra. Now, when one thinks of innovation, evolution, change, one can think of many things, such as the automobile. And the 100 years, the automobile has changed quite a bit. And in only a year, GameMT has been able to change their handheld, evolving from the original that was unique in a form factor, but had a terrible chip and terrible hardware, to a better version that still had a questionable D-pad, to an even better version with a better D-pad, to today. So, as always, let's start with the unboxing. And the box here is different. This time we have a really nice looking box that's improved. If you're going to go Ultra, then you need the packaging to match. The previous box was okay, but it was kind of plain. But this one has a nice front logo on it that has a nice texture to it. There's not much around the side. You do have that E5 Ultra logo on the side here. The one that's a bit divisive because it's on the handheld itself, but they continue to use that logo on the handheld, which, you know, I don't hate it, but I can see how some people are distracted by it. Not much else, but if you look on the back, we do have a tag here. And this tag does say GameMT E5 Ultra, and it has E5 Ultra Mante, whatever that is. Anyways, the really cool thing is this box is in a presentation where it opens from a flap. So it's got magnets here, and it opens from a flap. Opening it up, and the first thing we see here is a card. And the card does say GameMT. It says long press M button, enter game system. Game system. So I don't know what that's about. Maybe some custom firmware. Listen to me. Maybe some sort of custom overlay or something for Android. I don't know. We'll find out. On the other side, it does have an instruction manual with, you know, the manual, which is really thin, but it's an Android handheld, so I don't guess it needs much in the way of instructions because it is Android. So anyways, moving on, taking the handheld out of the way here, and beneath we do have our standard USB cord. So it's got a nice little purple that matches the purple on the box, so that's nice. Digging a little deeper, we have some kind of foam pad. Don't know what that is. And then below that, we do have a screen protector, and it's an actual good screen protector, not that flimsy junk. Nothing else below that. So pretty nice upgraded packaging. I like it. I like the presentation. But let's get this all put back in here because we really want to get to the star of the show. We want to get and check out the handheld itself and find out what changes have been made. Although it looks the same as the previous three models, let's see what's changed. Hey, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to talk about today's sponsor, AliExpress, in the IINE Micro Brick, a tiny homage to the original Nintendo controller we all loved. Really, even more less because this literally has no starter select. It just has the D-pad and the two buttons in that beautiful retro Nintendo colorway. This also can function as a TikTok scroller for those of you who want to have some sort of way to quickly change videos. There's even a third mode that says it can do things as far as keyboard and mouse. So it's a pretty cool little nifty thing. Not much so for gaming other than 8-bit or more minor gaming, but it's really beautiful and we want to thank AliExpress for sending it over for us to take a look at. You can pick this up using our coupon codes in the link below. Again, this is another unique, beautiful product from IINE called the Brick Micro. Thanks again to AliExpress, and back to the show. All right, now we got it out of here. I chose this color because I thought it was the best looking of the three, but immediately picking this up, it feels very familiar yet different. So let's talk about a little bit of the design changes here. We still have the logo there, okay? The logo is a bit divisive. I don't hate it, but I can see how some people might not like it. The back of it has also been changed. No longer is the Game MT logo back here or the speakers, which have been moved to another position, which has improved the sound greatly. We do have the same kickstand that we're used to, and it works just as effectively as before. The shoulder buttons are very similar, so not a lot of change there. They do feel good. I've liked these shoulder buttons, no complaint with them, so really okay with that. Now, on the Game MT E6 Max, they did go with micro switches for the buttons, but these feel a little bit more like the E5 Plus. In fact, comparing the two side by side, the hardware here with the revised E5 Plus is very similar. I think it's pretty much the same hardware with just a little bit of improvements. The D-pad does not stick out as far as it did before. But this is a good D-pad that we like, and I do think that they made the wise choice of continuing with this D-pad here. Sticks, I really would have loved the Genful sticks, especially since we're calling this Ultra. It would have been nice to replace these sticks. But, you know, they're Switch-style sticks. They feel good, and they feel a little bit better than the E5 Plus. So I think they've improved a little bit here. We still have the strange TK and M button, and as we saw in the unboxing, the M button will launch into some kind of game console thing. Looking at the top, here's where some more changes occurred. We no longer have two TF slots. We're down to one TF slot. Now, because this CPU probably doesn't have mainland Linux, and this is probably not going to have Linux on it, that's probably why they made this change. If you recall, with the E5 Plus, we could dual boot into Linux and Android, although that version of Android was questionable at best. Also, another change, we're down to just one port for charging an OTG. So I don't know if this has to do with the motherboard or the CPU, but that's a little interesting, although you can still use Bluetooth controllers and probably an OTG controller. We still have our headphone jack, so that's very important here. The side retains the power button and the volume rocker, and then not much else going on. Now, the plastic of this feels nice and improved. It's got some texture that wasn't on the previous one. Although I like the transparency of the previous one, I can kind of understand with, you know, the non-transparent here, just the selection that he went with this time. Again, we have some side holes for the speakers to come out of, as well as a vent on the top and back. So nothing on the bottom. So the thing feels, you know, kind of weighty and big. This is a vertical. I mean, that's how I look at it. It's not horizontal, but it's a vertical. And besides, you know, the 406 line, the V or the 405V, and the 4 inches, this is the biggest vertical handheld you can get. So, of course, if you like that Game Boy style and you just want a big vertical, that's what this is for. But let's get this thing booted up and take a look at it and check out the software. Hey Deadhead, sorry to interrupt the video, but I wanted to talk to you today about this, the Kinhank K56. This is an amazing handheld, a 5.5-inch, very comfortable to hold handheld. But even better, our friends at Kinhank have put this with a fully curated, awesome ROM collection that has everything set up for beginners. So if you want to purchase this for somebody that just wants to grab and play, this is the perfect handheld for that. When I got this for review, I was really impressed with the curation aspect of it. Now, the price of this is a little bit more, but with my coupons and our friends over at AliExpress, you can get this at a good price. Again, this is the Kinhank K56, and it is a handheld that I like a lot, especially for its awesome curated ROM collection. It can play reliably up through N64, Dreamcast, Sega Saturn, Nintendo DS. It can also dabble just a little bit in PS2 and GameCube. Anyways, check my description at the bottom for your codes to save. And we want to thank our friends at AliExpress as always for sponsoring this video. We'll see you next time. Back to the show. So yes, this does have the Tiger 620 CPU. And if you just saw the ad break there for the K56, that was the first time we had a 620. Now the Tiger 620 is really just a refined version of the Tiger 618, the handheld we saw EMULATION use on a line of their premium devices at the time a couple of years ago. So we know pretty well what this line can do. The 620 is not going to do a whole lot more than the 618. It's just going to do it a little bit differently. But since we did do that, let's take a look at this Android. And we finally have an actual nice presentation here of Android. It does boot up straight into Android when you pull it up. And we have some kind of planetary wall background, which I think looks great. But the other exciting addition here is that this touchscreen is nice and fluid. It moves and it's really good. Now, an interesting thing, when I plugged this in, it did identify as a Pixel. So I don't know if this is a Pixel screen from the Google Pixel phones, maybe. I'm not sure if someone can tell me. It is a 720p screen still, but it looks nice and sharp, and I think that's very appropriate for this CPU since we're not going to be pushing anything up to 1080p probably anyways. So looking through the software, let's try this thing. It said in the box to hold the M. And when I hold the M down, you do get something that loads up here. And oh, look, we are now into some software here. And we do have what looks like a front end. So this is kind of basic, but it reminds me of the older Retroid front end. Was it Retroid or one of the other systems? But here comes the first problem. We do try to load into this, and there's no games here. Okay, now if you go back and look at the actual file, they have put instructions there to tell you how to add games to this and get them to load. Unfortunately, it's kind of a lot of work. And since Android does support ES Emulation Station Desktop, which I use all the time, I didn't really put the effort in trying to load this thing. I did tinker with it a little bit, but it just ended up being worth the output since I like Emulation Station. Now remember, this being Android, you do want to set up things yourself. The Kinhank, the K56, that came with a version, questionable whether they should have done it, but of Emulation Station set up already with the game. So again, this one is going to take a little bit of setting up. They do have Dajishou loaded, which is great. But again, you'll have to go to the steps and set that up. So I give them props for giving us multiple options here. If you want to try their front end that they built in, you can check the instructions. There's a very interesting section that says online battle, which may be like that J Ultra that we just reviewed. I'm not sure. Again, I didn't get it set up, but kind of nice that it's here, along with the fact that you can use the Dajishou that they preloaded for you, or do like me and get Emulation Station loaded into it. Now, we know the CPU can do, I'll show some gameplay footage here of Gamecube running on this thing at 1x. Now, don't get excited. You're not going to be able to push this thing. You're going to get much Gamecube playing here, but some things like F-Zero are still going to run very poorly on this CPU, so don't get really excited here. But there were a significant amount of games that I could get playing GameCube through. Now, PS2 is a little bit different. You can get some PS2, mostly less demanding games playing on this as well. So, there's this whole talk of PS2 at under $100 or GameCube. This thing is coming in under $100, but I don't really think you should think of this as a PS2 or GameCube machine because it's really going to be frustrating. Now, if you can live with using something like MMJR2 or something, you can get better performance, but you're going to have to mess with it a little bit. Out of the box experience, this is still not a PS2 or GameCube, but for everything below it, Dreamcast looks fantastic. And where this thing really shines is PSP. I love PSP on this thing. It is a 16:9 720p screen. It looks fantastic on it. PSP plays really great with the CPU. You can do 2 to 3. Even some Nintendo 3DS is loading and playing pretty well on this, although 3DS is improved with the Azahar emulator where you can turn off the 3D effect. So the sound on this thing has improved. The buttons are really great. The D-pad is got the improved button. The speaker layout is better. The screen is nice and sharp. It's a good touch screen. Android is better, and it has that kickstand. So let's wrap up this review and talk about this unboxing review and talk about what we think. I give props for the continuing evolution here. GameMT has continued to refine this model. It was surprisingly popular overseas in China, which has prompted this to continue to improve. I'm not so sure over here in the Western world how many people have liked this. I don't think it's got enough attention, really. Of course, the first one was kind of terrible, even though it was only $30. But you're looking at $95 or $90 for this, and it's going to give you a really good experience all the way up through Saturn, PSP, N64, and all of those. You're even going to get somewhat of a decent emulation experience with GameCube and some PS2. You might even get some lower demanding Wii games running on this thing. But again, it is, a limitation here. Don't expect anything that you're going to see off the Retroid Pocket 5 or anything like that. But it's a good experience. They have a lot of software loaded here. Some of the things on this are still kind of in Chinese that I couldn't really read, and I don't really know the experience of this. But overall, I have to say that they are doing a good job with improving this. The E5 Plus, I still think is a great value if you can grab that thing at around $50 to $60 because it can dual boot and Linux on it's pretty good. It's a Rockchip 3566, especially if it has that improved D-pad. So I like this handheld. I may be in the minority, but I really think this is a great handheld. And if you want a really great PSP experience and a vertical form factor at under $100, this is really it. This is where you want to go. You might be able to pick up a 405V running the T618, which is going to give similar performance. If you can find one of those used, you might like that a little better, but this is going to have a bigger screen than that. This is a 4-inch, this is a 5-inch. So anyways, that's what we think about this. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. This thing looks crazy. It is kind of crazy. You can also reverse charge and power bank status. So that's pretty cool too. Remember to hug your loved ones and love your hugged ones because tomorrow is never promised. We'll see you next time. We got a lot more coming, Deadheads. Deadfred out.